Today, as I indicated earlier, is Recognition Sunday for the CCC, or CCC as you might call it, that is just across the parking lot. If you note our bulletin, in our bulletin, it says for this morning our theme is Life is Hard, God is Good. But I put a but in there. Life is hard, but God is good in spite of the hardness of life. If we use these difficulties in our lives as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks, then we can indeed recognize the hand of God, knowing that He uses these situations in our lives to get us where He wants us to be. But too often we grumble and we complain, why me? Why is this happening to me? Rather than trying to find out what is it that God is trying to help you to understand.
If it wasn't for the Christian Counseling Center, I don't think that I would be able to stand up here today. Around the same time last year, I had a lot of problems with friends. And I don't know if maybe that's just me, nobody else here has problems with their friendships and their relationships that they have with other people, but that was a big thing for me. And I'm looking around and I see so many young faces here. I'm also young, I'm 21. We forge a lot of friendships in high school, and this is the part of our lives where the relationships around us tend to mold us and shape us, and we depend so much on our friendships, and that's not a bad thing, but I think for me it became bad when I held my friendships in such high esteem to the point where God kind of became secondary to that, and I think that's what really messed me up. And I was thinking about what Pastor Fred had said just now about things happening for evil with God intending them for good, because to me at the time when all of my friends, and I had really close friends, they weren't the friends that were pushing me to have sex outside of marriage or do drugs or drink or party or any of that stuff. I had really good friends, really good Christian friends that supported me. And I don't know if that made it harder for me when all of these friends kind of were no longer in my life for whatever different reasons, disagreements or moving away or things like that. And I couldn't deal. I honestly could not deal. And that was so hard for me because I felt like I had such a big support team around me and that I could do anything. I had the love of my friends and the support of my friends, and we all felt like we were going through the same struggles together and we were able to pray together. And when I didn't have that, it was hard for me to deal with. And I think I stopped coming to church in and out for a while, and it's funny because you do that and sometimes people just think that you're missing, you go to another church or whatever, but I just didn't want to come. And Sister Helen, who I always knew all my life because I've been going to this church all my life, I think she had called me one time and asked me why I wasn't out to church, and I was shocked. I was like, Sister Helen? How does Sister Helen have my number, and how come she's calling for me? I expected her to ask for my mom or my dad or something. And she seemed so genuinely concerned about me not being here. And I always remembered that, and that was a little earlier on before I came to the Christian Counseling Center because I worked there for about 2 weeks. But I never thought that I would actually be going there to see anybody. And, I talked to my mom, and she had suggested, she was like, why don't you go and speak with Sister Helen and see her? Because she could see that I was really depressed about it. I was really depressed that all of the relationships around me just seemed to be falling apart. And I felt really low within myself, like, well, there has to be something wrong with me because all of these other people are fine and it's just me that they left, so what's wrong with me? So I went to her. I was actually at her house. Her daughter, Deborah, who's a really good friend of mine, set it up, and I just sat there and I spoke with her, and I was so honest, and she made me feel so comfortable. She didn't make me feel like, okay, because she's older than I am, you know, she's going to talk down to me and instruct me on what it is she feels that I should do. She listened to me. That was the first thing. And I know that's hard. Young people, you always feel like nobody listening to you, and nobody into listening to you. And she listened, and she arranged for me to come on my lunch hour, because I work at the bank, so I have that set hour, and I was driving at the time, and so once a week, every hour, I would come to see her in her office, and if I couldn't make it, I would call her, but she would call me if she didn't see me at church, or if she didn't see me, and she'd always check on me, and if I wasn't able to meet her, she would call me on the phone and talk to me, and even though I had like things to do at work, and I would be trying to figure out, well, how am I going to get her off the phone, but I couldn't lie and say that I was fine when I wasn't, and she sensed it. She was like, no, I know that you're not okay, and she would pray with me, and that means so much to me, Sister Helen. You have no idea, and I thank you for that. I thank you so much. Sister Helen encouraged me to write a journal, a prayer journal, and I still do it every day, and I notice that when I don't do it, my day seems to go not as good as when I actually sit down and I pray and I write in my journal. And it's just that whole idea of having that daily walk and that talk with God and cultivating that personal relationship. Because like I said, there's no relationship that you will ever have in this life that could ever compare to the relationship that you can have with God.
Well, this morning, Kim and I would like to share with you how the Christian Counseling Center blessed us so very much as we prepared for our marriage together. You see, within days of meeting Kim, I knew that she was the one I wanted to marry. She was perfect in every way. My challenge over the next year was to find out if Kim was the one God wanted me to marry, and to see if she wanted to marry me too. I spent time with her. I prayed with her. I got to know her. We became friends. I met her family. I sought godly counsel from others, and of course, I brought her flowers. Plenty of flowers. Eventually, Kim also believed that we were perfect for each other, and by that time, we both believed it was God's will for us to be married, so we got engaged. This was an appropriate time for us to seek wise and godly counsel together. I knew that investing in premarital counseling now would pay off in our marriage later. I had also sat through several services here at Calvary Bible, like we're doing today, over the past 4 years, in which the Christian Counseling Center was highlighted. I had heard personal testimonies of how counselors had helped numerous individuals over the years through many difficult situations, including loss of loved ones, marital difficulties, personal trials and struggles, and in many other areas. But at the time, I never really thought that I would be able to be personally ministered to by the Christian Counseling Center. Then it came to me. We have such a great resource right here in our own side yard, I should say. I knew that the Christian Counseling Center was exactly where we should go for that wise and godly counsel we needed. So we called for our first appointment. Shortly thereafter, Kim and I were greeted by Pastor and Mrs. Arnett, and we sat and shared our desires with them, and it was very evident that they were amply capable of discerning, dissecting, and delicately directing our ambitions. In the next session, the fun began. Although Mrs. Arnett was not able to join us, Pastor Arnett's humble, sensitive, and godly spirit was a blessing to us during the weekly sessions over the next 3 months. We began with a test, or rather, an inventory or an evaluation of ourselves, our habits, our thoughts and desires. This evaluation was thorough, and it covered every imaginable topic related to a God-centered marriage. Kim and I individually sat down and completed this inventory, and it was sent away to be scored. A few weeks later, the results were in. Had we passed the test? Were we right for each other? Well, the evaluation wasn't exactly quite designed to answer that specific question, but it was designed to identify the areas where we agreed with each other in life issues, in spiritual issues, marriage issues, and also it was designed to identify the areas where we might think differently and need to resolve our differences. The results of the evaluation were the basis of the weekly counseling sessions thereafter. The first thing it revealed to me, that much to my dismay, Kim was only almost perfect. Much to my surprise, I was nowhere near as perfect. There are many differences we had to overcome if this union of bliss was to be successful. But the best thing about the counsel we received was that it was an objective look at the issues that are integral to a God-centered marriage. Our marriage relationship was categorized by this inventory we took. It was categorized as a mixture of a traditional and a harmonious marriage. Each session was devoted to the individual topics from the evaluation, such as our individual roles and positions in marriage, our spiritual beliefs and our backgrounds, our family background, our future family expectations, our personality types, our cultural backgrounds, and every woman's favorite topic, finances. But not to be outdone by every man's favorite topic. I'll leave that to your imagination. The inventory we had completed highlighted the areas where our opinions were and our ideas were different, and our ideas and beliefs were similar. We spent more time on the areas where our expectations were different than those areas where we agreed upon each other. During one of the sessions, I remember, we were talking about family with Pastor Arnett. Both our individual family backgrounds and our upbringings and our future plans for our family and our marriage. Well, Pastor Arnett asked Kim, how many children would she like to have? Kim quickly answered, 9. After getting up off the floor, I reminded her that we had this discussion previously, and 9 was not a part of our discussion. Well, come to find out that Kim thought he was asking how many children were in her family. What a relief. Well, I had always believed, and it was re-emphasized again and again throughout the session, that clear communication is essential for a good marriage. That point was again re-emphasized during that particular exchange. In conclusion, the counseling we received from Pastor Arnett at the Christian Counseling Center was a wonderful enrichment to both Kim and I. The time we spent in counseling sessions together has proven to be a blessing in our now almost 7-month marriage. It is our prayer that with our love for God and our love for each other, along with a resolve to follow the principles that we've learned through the Christian Counseling Center right here at Calvary Bible Church, that we'll both grow old together.
First this morning, I just want to thank God for His grace and His infinite mercies. Secondly, I would like to thank Pastor and Sister Arnett and the team over at the Christian Counseling Center for the work that they're doing over there. Last year, I was invited by Sister Arnett to be a part of a special group session. She did not give me any background information. She did not tell me what the group was about, but she just simply invited me. It was not until the start of the session that Pastor and Sister Arnett explained that this was a group that will be discussing forgiveness and how to deal with it. Now I thought to myself, I said, so why was I chosen to be a part of this group? Do I look like I have stress or some unresolved issues? But I sat through the class, and after a few sessions, I realized that my being there was by no mistake. It was truly the divine will of God. I was burdened, and I didn't realize it. I had a lot to talk about, and this group helped me to identify those hurts, and it helped me to deal with it. Before being a part of this group, whenever I